The case of Tomasz Komenda is one of the most notorious and tragic examples of miscarriage of justice in modern Poland. It has become a symbol of the failure of the investigation, the pressure on the courts, and the ruined human life. Komenda spent almost 18 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. So what happened? On New Year's Eve, from December 31, 1996 to January 1, 1997, a 15-year-old girl, Małgorzata Kwiatkowska, was brutally murdered in the small Polish village of Malachis. After the disco, she was found dead near the place of celebration. The girl was raped and killed with extreme brutality. The case caused a huge public outcry. The murder of a child in a small town quickly became a topic of discussion throughout the country. From the very beginning, the investigation was conducted chaotically. There were signs that there could have been several perpetrators, witnesses were confused in their testimony, examinations were conducted poorly, and some of the evidence contradicted the official version. But the police and the prosecutor's office needed to find the culprit quickly. Why did suspicion fall on the commander? Tomasz was about 20 years old at the time. He came from a poor family, had minor intellectual problems, and was considered a simpleton. He was a convenient target for the investigation. At the same time, he had an alibi. About 10 to 12 witnesses claimed that he was in another place on the night of the murder. He did not fit the description of the criminal. His physical parameters did not match some of the traces found. However, the investigation gradually adjusted the materials to the version of his guilt. The key argument was the highly controversial examination of hair and biological traces. The methods of DNA analysis used at that time were very doubtful in the case. Later it turned out that the experts' conclusions were actually far-fetched and did not give 100% confidence in the coincidence. Pressure from the investigation. One of the scariest parts of this story is considered to be the work of the police. The commander was interrogated for many hours without proper protection. The investigators gradually sought confessions and necessary formulations. It later became clear that he was prompted with details of the crime, protocols could be edited, some witnesses changed their testimony under pressure, alternative versions were practically ignored. As a result, in 2000, a court in Wrocław found Komenda guilty of rape and murder and sentenced him to 25 years in prison. What happened in prison? This is probably the hardest part of the whole story. In Polish prisons, those convicted of murdering and raping children are at the very bottom of the unofficial prison hierarchy. Komenda was constantly subjected to violence. In his own words, he was beaten, humiliated, threatened with murder. The guards often turned a blind eye to it. He tried to commit suicide several times. He lived in constant fear. To survive, he slept fitfully and tried not to show his weakness. He later said that prison had actually destroyed his psyche. Now, let's find out why the case was reviewed. Years later, journalists and individual prosecutors began to doubt the verdict. A particularly important role was played by independent journalistic investigations, repeated DNA examinations, analysis of old case materials, witness testimony that had previously been ignored. New examinations have shown that biological traces do not match Komenda's fingerprints, some evidence was misinterpreted, and the version of several criminals looked much more plausible. In 2017 to 2018, the original charge actually collapsed. The Polish Supreme Court overturned the verdict. On May 16, 2018, Tomasz Komenda was fully acquitted. When Komenda was released from prison, he was already about 41 years old. He spent almost his entire adult life behind bars. His youth, the opportunity to create a family, make a career, and normal socialization. The footage taken during his release shows how broken he is psychologically. He said that he does not know how to live in freedom, is afraid of people, and does not feel like a full-fledged person. In Poland, he was greeted as a symbol of the monstrous error of the system. So who are the real suspects? After Komenda's acquittal, the investigation resumed investigating the murder of Małgorzata Kwiatkowska. New suspects have emerged, in particular a man named Irenaeus M. The investigation concluded that the crime was most likely committed by a group of people, and the initial investigation practically did not consider this version. However, the process turned out to be extremely difficult and dragged on for years. In 2021, A Polish court awarded Komenda compensation in the amount of about 13 million zlotys, which was a record amount for Poland. But many have noted that no amount of money will give a person back 18 years of life. After his release, Komenda tried to start a new life. He gave interviews, participated in public discussions about miscarriages of justice, and tried to start a family. But the psychological trauma was enormous. Many relatives said that he had never been able to fully recover from prison. In February 2024, Tomasz Komenda died of cancer at the age of 47. And why did this case become so famous? In Poland, Komenda's case has become almost a national symbol. First, the failure of the investigation. The investigators actually chose a convenient suspect and began to build charges around him. Secondly, the danger of recognition at any cost. The case showed how pressure on a suspect can lead to false confessions and ruin a life. Thirdly, examination errors. Scientific methods were used carelessly and interpreted in favor of the prosecution. Fourth, the slowness of the system. It took almost 2 decades to admit the obvious mistake. And fifth, this is the price of a miscarriage of justice. Komenda's story is an example of how, even after being acquitted, a person may never fully recover. The story has received a huge cultural resonance in Poland. Have been released the book 25 Years of Innocence, the film 25 Years of Innocence, the case of Tomasz Komenda documentary projects and TV series. What do you think about this story? Write in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any amazing new stories. See you.